Hey everybody, here we are talking about Inbox Zero. By now you should have a decent understanding of the getting things done method, or at least the things that David Allen talked about in his video. And this is our big chance to apply the idea of getting things done to our inbox itself. It's a great way to start. I don't know about you, but if I have a lot of emails sitting in my inbox and I'm not doing Inbox Zero, which happens more than I want to say, then it causes me a lot of stress, and I realize that my systems are breaking down or I'm just not using them. So clearing out your inbox and getting to Inbox Zero is a great way to reduce some stress. Because we want to get it out of our inbox. When we do that, then we get it out of our head. Because a lot of what's in my inbox kind of ends up in my head. All right. And the problem, as you know, is we get too much email. And part of that is we just get too much input because everybody can reach us nowadays. Let's talk about the steps to success. Now, the first thing you have to really look at before you even look at these steps or to understand is that you have to see email as something to process, not something to answer. So when you go into your email, you're like, okay, I'm going to process it using these 4 steps here. I'm not going to hang out and just reply. And I guess you could do that separately if you just want to have some fun. But if you want to deal with email efficiently, you have to think of it as something to process. And so I go into my email multiple times per day, do this process, and then I close it. Because otherwise a new email will come in, and as some of the lessons talk about later, there's a lot of competition for your attention, and email is one of the biggest competitors. So if you shut it off after you've processed it, then you have some space, some breathing room to do what you need or want, or to be creative, etc. All right, here's the 4 steps. One is to delete it, which mostly means archive it, depending on what program you're using, to delegate it to someone else, to action it, which is to put it into your system, which you'll learn more about later as part of the course, or to simply do it using the 2-minute rule. To delete it, this big part of this is probably unsubscribing. Be aggressive about unsubscribing to things that you don't need or want. There's usually a place at the bottom of the email to unsubscribe, or if you're on like an iPhone, that might be up at the top where Apple will help you to actually unsubscribe to emails. This takes up a big chunk of our lives, and if the first step is to delete or archive everything, wouldn't it be nice to have 10 or 20% less emails in there because we've unsubscribed to things we just don't really need or have any reason to have around? Next up is to archive it, so you can just hit the archive button in Gmail or delete perhaps as well, or create folders like you see here. You might have a folder for your boss or for travel or for family or whatever. Realistically, you could probably archive most of that stuff, but if you have a folder and you put it in that folder, it'll make you feel a little bit better and more comfortable that it's there, even if you don't really need it. But hey, this is about getting it out of our head, and that's one way to do that. Next up, if you have the opportunity to do this, is to delegate it. So let's pass that on to somebody else. If you're a teacher, you may not have that opportunity. If you're more in management, you might. But who knows, in your family life or if you have another job, there might be opportunities to delegate it. So after deleting or archiving, the next step is to delegate it. Next up is to action it, and you're going to put this now into your workflow system. Now, your workflow system, which we'll talk about more as part of this course, probably should look something like this. So if it's a date to meet or something like that, or something that needs to be done, you can get it into your calendar. If it's some information like, I don't know, a flight reservation, you put it into your digital storage system. If it's a to-do, you're working on a project and it's another step in that to-do or the beginning of a project or whatever, you put it into your task manager. If it's something you don't want to get rid of and you don't want to read it now, put it into your read later folder that you've created. But be honest with yourself, there's a good chance you probably won't read it later. It's pretty hard to go back and do that. But again, it's one of those things where it's out of my head, it's in my read later folder, and then certain times during the day or week or whatever, I'll go in there and just kind of check things out when I have a moment and I can enjoy reading it or whatever. But it gives you that sort of control. All right, next up is to do it. And the general rule on that, and that includes replying and things like that, or for some small task, is if it takes 2 minutes or less, just do it. All right, now you have it. These are the 4 steps, right? You need to delete it or archive it, delegate it, action it into your system, or if it's going to take 2 minutes or less, simply doing it. So you might look like this or feel like this right now when you open your computer and look at your email. And eventually, if you follow the system, you're going to look just like this. Really, it does work. I can promise you it does. And in the end, your head is clear. You have this wonderful space to think and be the creative person that you always want to be. Thank you, and go to it.